Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Bhutang dhammang sanghang namasami. So at this time I have this opportunity to reflect on this celebration of Luang Por Chah's 100th anniversary. The celebration taking place in Kuala Lumpur. And I wished I could be there in person, but it isn't working out suitable for me to attend. So I'm making this video in order to express my gratitude, supreme gratitude to the memory of Ajahn Chah, Tanjau Kun Potiyan Thera, who I met in 1967 when I was newly ordained bhikkhu in Thailand, and I went to meet and spend the pancha, the vasa with Luang Por Chah at Wat Pa Nong Pa Pong. He was a very excellent teacher. His method of teaching was always very direct, very practical, none of it theory, but always directing attention to the present moment, to be able to observe, to be the knower of the present moment as it is. The Buddha Dhamma is a direct teaching. It's not dogmatic, it's not about belief, holding to beliefs, but it's directive in terms of looking, as we say, inward, instead of seeking truth and ultimate reality in some outward experience. Direct in the worldly sense, we turn our attention outward through seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, always going out. But in the direction of the Buddha, it's to observe, to be the knower. And this, Luang Por Chah would express this through the mantra Puto, which is the mantric form or name of the Buddha. The knower, the knowing. Because consciousness is knowing, its function is knowing. It is like this, the present moment is like this. So we think in terms of the past, the future, the history of Buddhism. We think of Luang Por Chah as having been born 100 years ago in Thailand. This is the thinking process, remembering the past or reflecting on what what is historic and what is already past. And then the future is what we don't know, but we know that it's possibility, it's potential, it's full of hope or dread. And the future is to be seen always in the present moment as something we project outward through the thinking process as we hope for something, hope for the best or dread the worst. The past is a memory in the present moment. There's only this present moment. It's a kalika tamma santitiko, apparent here and now. It's here and now, it's timeless. And this is what we reflect on in monastic life. Every morning and evening during our pujas, we chant the reflections on Dhamma, Santitiko, Akaliko, Ehipasiko, Upanayiko, Bhajatang, Vaitidapo, Vinyuhi. This translates, that's the Pali language, and so this means Santitiko, apparent here and now. The Dhamma is here and now. It's not about some refined possibility in the future or some abstract idea. Dhamma is here and now. It's timeless, and so here and now is timeless. encouraging investigation, Opanayika Dhamma, Pasiko Dhamma, Opanayika Dhamma is leading inward. We're no longer seeking Dhamma as some external experience or something we can objectify, but we can know through awareness, through mindfulness, or in the Pali term, sati sampajanya. So this teaching of the Buddha is an ancient teaching dating back 2,561 years ago in India, so it's not like modern discovery. But when I met Luang Por Chah in 1967, he was very much trying to encourage Buddhism in Thailand, the Thai people that he would meet and encounter that would come to his monastery, to reflect on Dhamma, to awaken to Dhamma, to patibhatta, or practice, put it into practice. So the teaching of the Buddha after his enlightenment was the Patoma the original desana, or sermon that he gave in Saranat, was taking the common experience that every human being has, whether it's in the past or the present or the future. What is it that we as human beings share that's common to every single one of us, male or female, rich or poor, whether we're Asian or European or whatever, is just what the Buddha called the first noble truth, the suffering, human suffering. And this is an English translation of the Pali word dukkha, which means that which cannot be born, what we create, we hold to out of ignorance is suffering. And so the Buddha pointed to suffering and put it in the context of a noble truth. And this is unique, in religious traditions, to take something that nobody wants. Nobody wants to suffer. We all want to get rid of it, run away from it. We all want happiness. And so I used to reflect and consider, why did the Buddha in his first sermon, giving to the five comrades, the 5 disciples in Saranat, why did he make suffering the first noble truth? And then the advice the Buddha gave is to understand suffering. To understand suffering is not to analyze, why do I suffer? It's not to seek a cause for it externally, but to recognize it. It's like this sense of being separate, alone in a human form, in a vulnerable human situation, the old age, sickness, death, conditions that we all have to face in a human lifetime. We all have to experience loss in our lives and disease and failures and fears about the future, anxiety, worry. These are the ghosts, the kind of cold worms that stir our guts at times to create, even in the best of conditions, when everything is going right, a sense of anxiety, worry, if not even more extreme forms of suffering, such as greed and anger, rage, jealousy, and fear. In this realm that we're experiencing here and now is mortal realm. It's about being born and dying. And so the forms that we identify with, the human bodies that we have, that we attach to and regard in personal terms, with personal pronouns, with personal adjectives, these human bodies then are to be reflected upon. And what can reflect upon a human body? Can one's own body reflect on itself? Can it observe itself? Or is there this puto, this knowing in the present, the human form, the body that's sitting here in this chair is like this? It's knowing the way it is in the present moment. It knows, this knowing, the puto, knows the breath as it's happening. The inhalation is like this, the exhalation is like this. It knows the state of mind, the kind of emotional reality that we're experiencing in this present moment. Well, however you want to describe it, it is like this. There's this knowing, this conscious knowing in the present, and this is the Puto, knowing the way it is. And the way it is, the Buddha clearly defined in terms of the characteristics of all conditioned phenomena, is that everything that arises ceases, all conditions are impermanent. And this way of reflecting, this is a reflective ability that we share, ability to reflect on the realities of the present moment. They are the way they are. When we want something in the future, we don't like the way it is now. We want to have something better than what we're experiencing in the present moment. There's this knowing that I'm dissatisfied with the way it is, and that's knowing the way it is in the present moment. That knowing is the reality of consciousness, knowing itself in the present moment, knowing that all conditions, all phenomena are impermanent. And this is the way we begin, and this is an analytical process, or it's about observing the arising, the present moment is like this, but we bear with it, we accept it for the way it is, and it changes, it ceases. So the second noble truth is about the origin of suffering. So suffering has an origin, it's not permanent, it's not eternal. It arises and ceases. And so the origin of suffering is this ignorance of Dhamma, not knowing Dhamma, not recognizing the reality of here and now as you're experiencing it in the present moment, but always thinking always takes us towards the past or the future. And this thinking process is all about sankhara, or about conditioned phenomena. Thinking is a condition that arises and ceases. It's not permanent, it's not ultimate truth. Its function, the thinking function, is for discrimination. So it's all about the nature of conditioned phenomena. It's either big or small, male or female, right or wrong, true or false, good or bad. And so thinking always is around the qualities, the size, the shape, the value of conditioned phenomena. But the Dhamma is not conditioned phenomena. It's here and now. It's unconditioned. It's not dependent upon birth and death, arising and ceasing, or on conditions of the present moment. It's pure in itself. As we begin to investigate, reflect on the way it is, that the cause of suffering is this ignorance of Dhamma, and the way we tend to attach and align ourselves with conditioned phenomena out of this ignorance, out of this not understanding suffering. We attach to suffering and identify with it. So the human body becomes mine and me and everything I think and remember, my fears, my emotional habits, my conditioned reactions, my cultural conditioning, my social conditioning, the ego, all of these are creations that out of ignorance I would identify with. And all those conditions are impermanent, they always lead to cessation. But when we develop this critical faculty and believe in it, then we're always trying to avoid suffering by seeking happiness. We're always looking for a way out of suffering, how to suppress it, how to deny it, blame it on something or somebody else. And therefore we don't see what we're doing. We're not aware of what we're actually happening in the present moment, because it becomes a habit. It's the way we react to suffering, by fleeing from it, by blaming it on others, by wanting to get rid of it, wanting to live in a state that we're permanently happy, but not understanding, not really accepting suffering as we're experiencing it in the present. So the second noble truth is to let go of conditioned phenomena. This letting go is like putting down, it's not destroying anything. It's not like you're suppressing, denying thoughts or feelings or what we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, or think. It's not a denial, it's a relaxation of this grasping, this holding, clinging to conditioned phenomena out of ignorance. So the second noble truth is to let go of the conditions. And so we begin to see that, with Puto, the sati sampajanya, or the mindfulness, intuitive awareness, aware of accepting the first noble truth, allowing it to exist, and to be aware of its absence, because suffering is impermanent. What arises ceases, and it certainly arises, and it certainly ceases. We begin to see that if we stop clinging and attaching and blinding ourselves through this ignorance, then we let go of the conditioned phenomena, and we become aware of its absence. As we let go of this blind attachment, identity with conditions, what happens is the conditions cease, and what's left is unconditioned. This unconditioned then is the third noble truth, the truth of the cessation of suffering. Suffering ceases, and we're aware of the absence of suffering. And we're seeing the absence of suffering not through any attachment to it on a personal identity level, but in just observing the silence, the relief, the sense of well-being that comes from letting go of conditioned phenomena, no longer identifying with it, but allowing conditioned phenomena to arise and cease, letting it go, and observing, recognizing the absence of suffering, which is the cessation of suffering. In Pali terms, it's called nirodha, which leads on to the fourth noble truth based on samadhi, right understanding or perfect understanding, because the understanding that comes through this kind of intense reflective awareness on the way it is perfect understanding. It's not about imperfect understanding anymore. We actually know on a gut level non-suffering, non-desire, non-attachment, non-self. These are no longer abstract ideas that we think or hold to or analyze or try to figure out. It's a direct knowing of the reality of non-self, non-divisiveness, non-desire, non-suffering. And so this is based on perfect understanding, samadhi, and that develops the eightfold path. The eightfolds are not 8 steps. It's not in tandem of one follows the other, but in the thinking process we have samma ditti, samma sangapo, samma vaja, samma gamanto, samma achivo, samma vayamo, samma sati, samma samadhi. Because thinking is like that. You can only think one thought at a time. So you have to think samma ditti before you think samma sangapo. But there are 8 folds rather than 8 steps. So what does that mean? This is an intuitive reality that we're awakening to. So during this time that I had very good fortune to be with Luang Por Chah, be close to Luang Por Chah for many years. And I found my relationship with him, I really felt incredible respect and gratitude towards Ajahn Chah, because he was not only just a very wise monk, but a very lovable person, someone that you know, who had a great charisma, great ability, great warmth, a lot of metta, and a lot of loving kindness and compassion. He was a joyful being. He could be equanimous, peaceful. And so to me, he represented, you know, the possibility for human development. In my life, when I met Luang Por Chah, I was at the age of 32, and you know, I'd never met anybody that impressed me so much, just on the more intuitive level, because it took me a while to get to understand the Thai language, but I had this more of an intuitive relationship, a sense of trust and respect that developed not from knowing all about him or, you know, analyzing him, but reflecting on the way he taught, the way he presented opportunities to me, to all the other monks, the nuns at Wat Pa Pong, the lay people. He was open to everyone who would take an interest. And his teaching of meditation was one that was practical, wasn't just, you know, too technical, too abstract, full of techniques and ideas that we had to use, but it was encouraging us to awaken to reality, to Dhamma, to observe. He'd say, know what you're thinking, know the state of mind you're in. And in that first year, before I could really understand or appreciate his formal talks, you know, I did his encouraging me to just observe the states of mind that I would be experiencing. So when you're the first Western monk in a very conservative part of Thailand with a very strict Vinaya monastery, and you come from a totally different background, from West Coast American idealism and attitudes and assumptions, then you're going to experience a lot of mental doubts about emotional resistance, worries, anxieties, self-consciousness. All kinds of mental states would arise during that first year. And Luang Por Chah would encourage me to observe them, to see them in terms of the arising, ceasing of conditions, rather than acting on them, believing in them, or trying to suppress feelings. And this I could do without a lot of explanation, without a lot of understanding of Thai language or Pali language, because I certainly had the opportunity during that first year to adjust to a totally different way of life, to monastic life, to life in Thailand, to different diet, different climate. Everything was different. So, you know, you're thrown into a situation that you feel very insecure and on a personal level, and oftentimes misunderstand, sometimes project all kinds of your own fears and feelings onto situations. But with Luang Por Chah's direction, his direct teaching was always one to observe that. So he wasn't trying to convert me or convince me. It wasn't about what I should think or how I should feel about Buddhist monasticism, about Vinaya, about Thailand, about him, about the Sangha. It was to observe the reactions I did have that come up in the present moment, to be patient, accepting them, to allow them to exist, to let go of them, to no longer cling to them or reject them. And in that process, then I began to have insight into the absence of suffering. So, on this occasion, I send my blessings and my good wishes to all who are attending, and hoping that my contribution will be one that will inspire and give and support faith and interest in the Buddha's teachings, and also for us to reflect on the katanyu, the gratitude we all feel to Luang Por Chah for presenting Buddhist teaching in such a clear and direct way at this time in our lives. So I wish you all the best. May you have much success, much happiness, good health, and long life.